Sonic the Hedgehog, one of the cool... No, we're not doing that. Go on, Guptil. Give off your pop. We're gonna go. Sonic! You know him. Some of you might love him. Don't try and deny it. I've seen things. But Sonic, he's had some games, with some considered as some of the best and worst games of all time. And with such a varied library, I wanted to go through most of the important ones in Sonic's library and see which stand out and which can, quite frankly, perish. And what better title to start off with than 1991 Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Mega Drive, or Genesis if you're one of those Americans that I keep hearing about. As a side note, I actually planned on making a Sonic Adventure video first since I kept referencing the 2D games, but I figured I should probably give my opinion on the first ones before moving on to Adventure. For this video, we'll be going through each zone one by one and seeing what makes each zone work or what doesn't, and going through my overall thoughts towards the end of the video. So what better way to get started than Green Hill Zone. Now, as sick as I am of seeing this one of two levels pop up in every new Sonic game, oh, don't worry, we'll be looking at that cheeky fucking cherub in another video. I have to admit that it is nice to see Green Hill Zone in its native game. This zone is iconic for a reason. Simply put it's just really fun to play. It's well designed and it makes you want to constantly replay it so you get better and better at the level for that sense of speed, and so you can keep more rings for the end of the level, something that we're also going to get into later towards the end of the video. They say that the most important thing is a first impression, and Sonic 1 absolutely hits it out of the fucking park in that regard. Green Hill Zone is simply put fantastic. It teaches you about Sonic 1's momentum, risk-reward style gameplay just through this zone's level design alone. Keeping the speed up means you'll get to higher places, meaning a higher chance of rewards, and if you fall down onto lower parts of the level, meaning you'll be taken onto a slower route of the end goal. It punishes the player noticeably, but not too harshly, and that's something a game needs to balance really well, especially for a first level, and Sega's managed to do that perfectly in this instance. Now on to the next level in the game. Marble Zone seems to be a little bit more contentious from what I've seen from discussion online, and I've even seen some people say that the game takes a nosedive at this stage and doesn't ever recover, and honestly I disagree. I personally think that this stage is fine. The biggest criticism I've seen levied against Marble Zone is the more puzzle-heavy design, having you stop and complete simple block puzzles or wait for platforms to move to their destination. And whilst I understand and agree that the pace of this zone is definitely slower than that of Green Hill, I don't see that as a deal breaker myself, especially since if you know the level layout well enough, you can skip parts of the section rather easily, keeping up the game's style of rewarding the player for remembering the level layout and getting through the zone fast, just in a bit of a different way than what Green Hill Zone has done previously. However, I think the main issue that Marble Zone had is its placement. Let's be real, any stage that was gonna come up short if they placed just after Green Hill Zone. Whatever stage was gonna come after this one was gonna look worse in comparison, especially the more puzzle-focused Marble Zone. But regardless, I still think that this stage is overall pretty decent. Now this is where the game starts to go downhill in my opinion. Whilst the worst this game has to offer is definitely still yet to come, and whilst I don't think the zone is terrible per se, Springyard Zone, it isn't great. For reference, in most later Sonic games there's usually a pinball or at least pinball themed stage. Makes sense, right? Sonic goes in a ball, he goes fast, shooting around the stage like a pinball sounds like fun, and it does later prove to be. In this game though, it feels like it had a couple of issues. One of the issues is of course the aesthetic of the level. To me, it just kind of feels like they wanted to make this stage a pinball level, and they either just didn't have time or forgot to make it a pinball stage. Like, that little tangent aside, the main issue of this level is that you barely have any fucking control over where you go. You just get bounced around all over the shop depending on your momentum, and the directional control that you have is again extremely minimal, meaning you can be stuck in places this stage between the springs through little fault of your own, and this happened to me. I feel this also messes with the risk-reward aspect of this level, because it's more of a challenge to get to higher ground, not through any fault of your own, and I think you're more incentivized to stick to lower parts of the level and attempt to just get it over with quicker, and just with a bit more aerial control. I reckon this could have kept the risk-reward aspect up just as well as Green Hill Zone did, but as it is now, it just leaves the level feeling a little bit tedious, to be honest. Speaking of tedious, now this is where the game takes a serious fucking nosedive. I honestly have no clue who at Sega HQ thought, yeah, this isn't the equivalent of a war crime. Everything about Labyrinth Zone is just terrible. There's actually no redeeming qualities to this level. Like the name of the zone implies, this is very much a labyrinth. Now this on its own might not have been so bad. It's similar to Marble Zone in that there are light puzzles that you need to do to complete the level to progress. Now a good 90% of this level is in the water, and gameplay in the water slows down to an absolute crawl, and God fucking help you if you get hit at all. I've seen people recover from deep-seated trauma faster than Sonic takes to be lightly tapped while he's underwater. And if anything happens to pop up or wander by when you get hit once, you're just done. There's no way of saving you. Goodbye. Add insult to injury, the boss of the zone is just as bad as the zone itself. Up until now, I haven't really had much reason to talk about the bosses due to them being extremely simple, but I can barely call this a boss. It's literally just more of the level. That's the boss. You can just completely ignore Eggman and get through this stage absolutely fine. You know what you were doing, Sega, you cheeky bastards, you. But what's this? A level I actually like? An actually good stage that consistently rewards the player for keeping their momentum and speed in the same way I praise Green Hill Zone for doing? After what we've had a slog through? Thank fucking God! Regardless if this is showing my views a little bit early, this is probably as good as the game is going to get in my opinion. This stage is absolutely fantastic and in my opinion the second best zone in the game right after Green Hill Zone. Like I mentioned before, this stage does a lot of things right that was established in Green Hill, and the main example of this is enemy placement. If you're good enough and kept up speed to remain in the higher sections of the level, you're much less likely to run into the tougher enemies introduced in this zone, whereas your progress will be halted and you'll need to wait until either there's an opening in the level or the enemy blows up to themselves to progress if you're in the lower sections of the level. Once again, creating that drive to replay this particular section so you can improve, remember the layout and stay on top to beat the level faster and keep more rings. There's a couple things in this level has done that I would like to talk about that I've neglected for this video, first of all being the music. All around, yes, including Labyrinth Zone, the music in this game has been pretty fantastic, and although one interesting tidbit that I heard, now I'm not sure if this is true, but it's a super interesting story, that is that Starlight Zone's music is a remix of Spring Yard Zone's theme, or vice versa from what I've heard. Apparently they didn't have time when making the game to give one of the zones its own distinct theme and just remixed the current one and placed it into one of the zones. It's something I can kind of hear having been told about this, but honestly if I wasn't told this, I wouldn't have been any the wiser. If you felt the same as in the way as me, I encourage you to listen to these songs on their own back to back and listen to the similarities. It'll be something you won't be able to unhear after. Another thing about this zone I wanted to give credit for is its boss. Now the gimmick is simple enough, bounce on the end of the little seesaws to throw the projectiles back up at Eggman, but the game shows you this early in the level, except using the concept of traversal. Not only this, but you can use Sonic himself to attack Eggman if you bounce up to the top, as demonstrated when using the seesaws earlier in the level to progress, organically giving the player two ways to attack Eggman that come totally natural from experimentation. Contrary to what the designers have shown in the earlier zones, they clearly have some grasp on good game design here, and I just wish they had shown it more in earlier stages. Some more than others. And now we're on to the final zone of the game, Scrap Brain Zone, and honestly I don't have much to say on this one. The way I feel about this zone is about the same as I feel about Spring Yard Zone, just kind of below average really. There's much worse in the game, there's also much better, so this is really nothing impressive. It likes its trapdoors and environmental hazards a lot, which turn out to be a lot more annoying than like challenging, but overall it's okay. That is if this was just Acts 1 and 2 we were talking about. But in this game, every zone has 3 acts. And for no fucking reason, Act 3 is just another Labyrinth Zone level again. Why? Why did they think, oh, you know the absolute worst, most insufferable part of our game? Let's just give them more of that. People are gonna love that. This'll be gravy. There's a side note in my script. I've got that in quotation marks, just as if someone was saying that, and after a little smiley face and just a little yay in brackets. I I don't know why I did that. I don't remember doing that, but it's there. The final boss really isn't anything special either. At least it's very easy. You just avoid the electric balls and hit Eggman in the correct capsule till it explodes. And with that, the game's over. But what's this? Try again. So, if you didn't notice, if you have 50 rings or over at the end of the level, you can jump and grab one of the 6 in this game anyway, Chaos Emeralds. And let me tell you, these are probably some of, if not the worst special stages in Sonic history. Looking and playing it makes me want to throw up. You have little control over where you go, and the music, which this game is usually really good with, is so fucking droning. It just goes on and loops after like 12 seconds. I can feel its smug aura mocking me. But for putting up with this bullshit, you must get some kind of reward, right? Nope, not really. You get Sonic going back to Green Hill Zone and more flowers grow. Hooray? It's not worth it. If anyone says it's worth it, they're lying to you. I got a few for the sake of footage, but if I'm ever playing this game, I can't be bothered to collect them, and honestly, I'd recommend the same for you, but you do you. So overall, what do I think of Sonic 1? Well, if I'm being honest, even with the context of this being the very first Sonic game, I just don't think it's very good overall. Now, just to clarify, when I say that, I'm talking about this game in and of itself. The port I'm using is the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis Classics port on PC, which plays absolutely fine, but an underwhelming platformer, albeit with a brilliant first level, cute little story about environmentalism and bopping soundtrack, doesn't usually sell over 50 million copies and kickstart a franchise now ringing up to 30 years in the making. Well, I think the reason why Sonic 1 was so successful was due to one simple reason: marketing. I may find the decision Sega took in designing the game to be quite questionable, but what I cannot say anything about is how this game was marketed back in the 90s. It was nothing short of fucking genius. They practically weaponized playground mentality by presenting Sonic, and by extension Sega, as the hip, cocky everyday hero going up against the then singular, dominating competition was the boring, drab Nintendo. Without Sonic, there would simply be no console wars, quickly becoming Sega's go-to mascot from the game's release, and putting their previous mascot, Alex Kidd, swiftly out of the company and the public's eye. So whilst I can't really say I like or really respect Sonic 1 as a game in and of itself, it's everything around its creation, presentation, and marketing I find to be way more fascinating personally. If you're looking to get into 2D Sonic, I would say the later sequels that there are better places to start. Hell, I know I did. But if you really want to see where Sonic got his start, the game's been ported to practically every console known to man, from Switch to PC to GameCube to iPod Touch. I should know. I used to have this game on my old iPod Touch back in like 2009, and not the good port on mobile devices with added features that were made in the last couple of years. The old stinky port Sega put out before they updated it. But if you want to check out Sonic 1, I'd suggest giving it a look when it's on sale. In any case, I hope you all enjoyed this look back on Sonic 1, and next at Sonic we'll be looking at its direct sequel, Sonic the Hedgehog 2.